All right, I don't want to joke on somebody in mental health crisis, but this guy does a Legolas impression that's not so good. Hi everyone, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, as always, John Correa. With me, the host of the Ask Podcast, Mike Willett.
And today's video comes to us from the DMV, Fairfax County, Virginia.
Big Tech's Ordnance is my go-to source for accessories for all your defensive and competition firearms. They have great holsters with accessories for concealment and ship fast at great prices. I'm a proud customer and recommend them without hesitation. Mom and dad at this home are elderly people. Their son lives in their basement, stopped taking his medication, and started getting violent, started making threats against mom and dad. They called police. Police said, man, there isn't anything here we can criminally charge him with right now, but they did give mom and dad the information about filling out an emergency custody order and swearing that out before a judge to get him, seen that they have to take him into custody. He has to see a clinician. So mom and dad did go and swear out an emergency custody order. It was mom and dad who chose to do that. The judge did sign it, so officers are here in order to enforce that injunction. Let's listen in on the work that they do. You're going to hear a little bit here from the PIO of this department who explains a couple of things in it. She does a great job, and so I'm going to let her talk in this.
Get him to come upstairs voluntarily, and if he doesn't come up, then
this is the top block, and this is the bottom, I think.
Okay.
The square one. And there's... I do.
Okay. If you see anybody coming.
His door is shut.
Robert, right? Hey, Robert! Fairfax County Police, I need you to come up. He's locked. Robert! I got the stairs. Fairfax County Police! Need you to come upstairs. I hear steps. No, I don't. Okay. I'll hold this.
Clear.
Are we holstered up? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to open it? You want to hold it?
It's locked. I tried. Robert! Fairfax County Police, I need you to come up. So.
It's up to you. It's up to you. I mean, that might be pushing the buttons a little bit. But...
Robert! Need you to come upstairs, buddy. I hear something. Be quiet. Robert!
At 12:23 p.m., officers established verbal contact with Jablonski.
Yeah, I need you to come upstairs. Nope, you're coming with us. You gotta come up here, we'll talk about it.
Hey Robert, we can't leave, man. We gotta help deal with this problem today. He ain't gonna come up. We're not charging with anything. We have an emergency custody order for you, though. From Merrifield?
It's from the magistrate. He ordered it.
They'd like you to speak with a clinician today to check up on your med usage.
Officers continued to speak with Jablonski for 15 minutes, asking him to come upstairs. He refused and grew increasingly agitated.
I understand, Robert.
No, you don't, because you're still fucking here. The first one down here died.
Well, we're not going to come down, Robert. We're going to give you that respect for your space.
I'm gonna fucking kill her before she fucking wakes up tomorrow.
Can't leave now. You got that? Did you hear that? He's going to kill Mom before she wakes up tomorrow.
I start fucking killing people, they put their hands on me. That's you're supposed to arrest them and protect me. And after I'm done with her,
At 12:38 p.m., Jablonski's verbal threats of violence towards his family and officers posed an immediate threat and required officers to stay on scene. The duty officer made the decision to isolate and contain Jablonski to de-escalate the situation. Officers tactically repositioned outside of the home and awaited further resources.
Yep, alright, we'll set up on the house. Alright, cool, we'll do that. Alright, thanks, bye.
I think we need to back out and set up on the house. Yeah, okay.
At 12:59 p.m., Jablonski exited the home with a compound bow and arrow and aimed the weapon at officers at full draw.
Hey, put it down! Put it down! Hey, compound bow! He's got a bow! Put it down! Put it down! He's got his bow out. Put it down! He's aiming it. Put it down! Stay on the ground!
At 1 p.m., EMS was requested. Medical attention was provided by multiple officers on scene until they arrived. Jablonski was taken to a nearby hospital for further treatment for non-fatal injuries. Jablonski was charged later that day with one count of attempted aggravated murder of a police officer.
As you can see, it was non-fatal, but that was pretty serious, the bow and the arrow that he had in there. Thankfully, no one else was harmed in this one, and we got a couple of really significant lessons to think about. I just want to say props to these officers for their really solid de-escalation skills. I think they did everything that they possibly could have, but again, the perp's actions are determinative of what goes down. So let's think about some of these lessons. If you follow the channel for any length of time, you know that mental health and mental health care in America is a hot button for me and is a significant deal for me. And my heart goes out to mom and dad. My heart even goes out to this guy who, for whatever reason decided he didn't want to take his psychiatric medication. I think that that's a big mistake, and I think that the psychiatric medication can really help, but of course you gotta take it. And at some point as mom and dad, you say, wait a minute, this is violent threats. I gotta get the cops involved. And so Mike, the thing that we ask our law enforcement officers to do here is everyone else we wanna back the heck out of there, but the cops can't pass the buck. They have got to get in here and they have got to do something about this. They can't just say, hey, not my problem, like the social workers, like the hospital, like the psychiatrist, like anyone else can.
As my favorite commentator, Andrew Clavin, likes to say, the police are the last rung on the societal ladder. They're who you call when there's no other way to deal with a situation. I can't imagine how his parents feel, because I remember having an older sibling who I loved with all my heart. I was terrified of him. In being in the same home with him. And that's a very weird dichotomy. It's a weird place to be where there's somebody you care about so deeply, and yet you have to call the police on them. And I know there'll be comments about, well, when you call the police, this is what happens. Well, not necessarily. Thousands of these events go on every day across the country, and they end peacefully almost all the time. But once in a while, you get someone who is off their meds, they're having a psychotic or a break or something like that, or an episode. They're not thinking clearly at all, and everyone's their enemy, and everyone's out to get them, and they're paranoid. And this is the end result. Unfortunately, sometimes these officers have to be here. There's plenty of other places they'd rather be. This is their job. They got to be here. They got to deal with this guy, and I think they did an extremely professional job. Fairfax County PD, by the way, I've interacted with them professionally in my career. Outstanding agency, outstanding training, outstanding officers.
And I want to say here as well, I think they did excellently with their verbal skills. I think that they addressed him by name. I think that they worked very hard to give him space. They didn't press the action here. Instead, they repositioned when they had to. They communicated with compassion. A couple of things that I would suggest as you're doing that, as somebody kind of who is, a verbal de-escalation instructor, is step out from behind the badge, right? Hey, my name is Jim. I'm here with, the police department, but I'm here to help you, man. And I want to try to do that. Now, we don't get every piece of verbal skills that they did. And I think that they said, hey, man, we can't leave. I understand that you want us to, but we got to go and talk to the clinician today. So practice those skills. And I get it. Officers practice this every day. And I want to reiterate what you said, Mike, as I know that it shows up on the channel like this, and it makes the national news when everything goes wrong. But 1,000 times a day, this doesn't go wrong. 1,000 times a day, the officers are able to talk him into going and getting seen. It's when it all goes south that it actually makes the national news. And I think that the officers did a really good job here of, as they continue to talk to him, notice here he's getting more agitated, so the officer puts a gun in his hand. I don't blame him for that at all. He's got to be the one at some point that goes, man, if this guy comes up the stairs with a threat, somebody's got to be ready to deal with that. But in an overall sense, with all these officers here, I think they were very patient. I think that extends even, Mike, when they decide in this, they go, nope, he's getting more violent, so let's back off and give him some more space. They slowed their roll, and I think that was actually a really good and brave decision.
Agreed. I think in this situation, I just want to talk briefly about the officer here in front with the awesome haircut and the gun in his hand. I think that's appropriate. I think you're right, because in that position, he's the pointy end of the spear right there. He's the one right by the door, and to have it out and ready, there's nothing wrong with that. He's not threatening him with it. He's not yelling and screaming or waving it around. He's just got a gun out in case he needs it. Now backing out, turns out it was a great idea. It was the right thing to do, because we don't want to press and press and press with someone who's that agitated. They're only going to get more agitated. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want the police there. They want to do what they want to do. So I think repositioning yourself outside the house is an excellent idea. Plus, it turns out he showed up with a bow and arrow, so it was a good thing they had some distance between him and them, because if they had been a lot closer, this might have gone a lot differently.
I also want to give props to the police department here, because they've invested a bunch of officers' time in doing this. And in many places, man, you feel so much pressure to get to the next call, to clear the call and go to the next. You got plenty of other work and plenty of other calls to go to, but they go, no, I'm just going to chill. We got to just give this enough time. So good for them for being patient enough. Now, of course, the guy decides to step out the front door with a bow. So I love the fact that the officer has his carbine out here. I think it's the right thing to have. This is why you have a patrol carbine, that if you think this is going to happen as he's getting more agitated, yeah, I want to be on the rifle if I can. Couple of small things I want to talk about here as the officer kind of gets himself ready. He's got a well-equipped carbine with a red dot on it. You kind of heard a little bit. He did futz with his safety a few times as he was thinking about it. See him as he brings it down here. Administratively, he does have his safety off. And you know that I'm going to harp on that a little bit, right? Because he's standing on a sidewalk right now, but right next to the snow, and real easy to end up slipping on the snow and cooking around off here, which is why we always say on the sights, off the safety, off the sights, on the safety. And you got to practice that again and again and again. I will say this, though. This is one of the few cops I've seen, Mike, successfully using his sling.
Yes, well done on the sling. Agreed. When we used to teach, we had M4s at my agency. Excuse me. We had M4s, and part of the qualification was utilizing the safety. So as soon as the barrel dips down and you're off the sights, the safety goes on. And if you don't put the safety on, that will cause you to not qualify. That means you're not proficient with that weapon. So don't want to harp on this guy. He did a phenomenal job, but you're right, that safety should be on as soon as he's off the sights. With that said, he's also standing on snow, and it's slippery and it's uneven, so it's doubly important the safety go on in this situation, because you're right, he could slip, and that tendency to grasp your hand when you slip means he could have put his finger on the trigger and cooked off a round. So thank God that didn't happen, and other than that, the sling use is exemplary. Well done.
Yeah, and again, a small thing, but a thing for us to think through. This is an administrative thing. Work on this in our training. Now, the guy comes out here with a bow in his hand, right? And not only does he have a bow in his hand, you can see the truck on the right side just a little bit there, and the guy is pointing the bow with an arrow knot with the officer to, who is behind that car. So he is pointing a compound bow at an officer that is 100% a deadly threat. And so no problem with justification here. Guy, presents an imminent deadly threat. You got to stop that without any question. Now, the thing that I want to talk about is this. Having done the measurements on this one, this officer is right at 25 to 26 yards away, which with a pistol is a pretty darn good shot. If you've got, especially if you got iron sights, if you got a red dot on it, you still got to really make sure you get grip, sights, trigger, and all those things. Should be able to get a good hit. But with the patrol carbine, this is an absolute layup. This is the kind of shot that if you got any kind of training with a carbine, especially you got a red dot on it, something, you put the dot on him and you put the biscuit in the basket, which is why I think every officer should have a patrol carbine available to them because of issues like this that make that much more doable in the moment.
Agreed. I think also in this situation, a shotgun with a rifled slug would have been almost as good. But, you know, 25 yards, a pistol shot is 100% doable. That was the extent that my agency and a lot of agencies go to. That's the furthest out you go during the qualification course. You should be on your own practicing further away than that, but not to get too far afield. Yeah, 25-yard shot with an AR, especially with a well dialed in red dot, it's a gimme. That's really, really, really easy to hit someone at that distance, and that's exactly what he did here. Let me talk for a second about the compound bow. If you've never seen a compound bow in action, go look it up on YouTube. Look what it can do to the flesh of an animal or a human, and it's devastating. And not for nothing, the 3A armor these cops are almost certainly wearing is not going to stop that from, it will penetrate their body armor 100%. So there's no question this is a deadly threat. That compound bow and that nasty arrow that he's wielding there will go through a vest, and getting it back out without you bleeding out is very difficult. So I think deadly threat is well sorted here.
Now, I don't think, we haven't talked about this, Mike, so we're going to talk about it here for everybody to listen with us. He took a single shot and then stopped. Generally speaking, what we say is that a standard response is somewhere 5 to 7, but this officer just takes one and then assesses what went down from there. Now, that made the guy stop. That, you know, hit him, dropped him, whatever. It worked out and it worked well. But what do you think of taking a single shot here and then stopping and assessing?
I think it was the right thing to do. You know, every situation is a little bit unique in its own way. So this doesn't, you know, when we say stuff like this, it doesn't apply to every other shooting that ever happens. This is a singular incident. And in this incident, I think it was bright light. He could see the subject clearly, and I think he could see that he went down immediately. So he determined in that moment there was no need for a follow-up shot, especially at 25 yards, especially in good lighting. He could see the first shot was effective and knew he didn't need to take any more. And that in the end of the day is the right thing to do. You know, we shoot to stop the threat, and the threat had obviously stopped. So well done for him.
Yeah, and because he could see it, I think that pretty clearly is good here. I also love that as soon as that threat goes down, of course, you know, as soon as he goes down, the bow collapses on itself. He's not going to probably be able to draw it, so he's not even going to be able to re-emerge necessarily as a deadly threat, at least not with that compound bow. So good for the officers here then of closing the distance, getting that guy into custody, getting him to the hospital, and getting his wounds treated so then that way he could get the help he needs. I'll say one last thing here. I hope that this man gets the help he needs, is able to get back into to being a little bit healthier. He's going to go to prison for a good long time for what he did here, but hopefully that can afford him the fact that he'll be able to take his medication that'll be required of him to do so every day, and that he's able to do better. And I think that at the end of the day, these officers did excellently. They commended themselves by their behavior.
And I want to say this too. This gentleman's watching, the one who took this shot. If you survive an AR shot to the chest, God's got a plan for your life. So investigate that and see what's going on there.